all the DMs that I get on the daily basis being like, I want to be in porn. I'm like, dude, you have no idea. It is so difficult for men to do. It's like, you got to stay hard. You have to be.
What's happening, people? Today's guest is Holly Randall, photographer, director, producer, and podcast host. She's considered one of the most influential women in the adult film industry, and she's been profiled by Playboy, The Insider, as well as The Secret Lives of Women. We talk about the future of sex in the metaverse, why she believes porn addiction isn't real, and a whole lot more. So enjoy the podcast.
The Way of Will John.
Holly, what's up? How's it going?
It's going great. How are you doing, William?
I'm doing well, thank you. So, who are you? What are you doing? Why are you so cool? Give me that. Give me that answer.
So, my name is Holly Randall, as we already stated. I am a 25-year veteran of the adult industry. I'm a director, photographer, producer, and podcaster. I grew up around the adult industry. My mother is Suze Randall. She was kind of a pioneer for women working behind the camera. She was one of the first female erotic photographers. She was the first female photographer on staff, not the first female photographer overall, but the first female photographer on staff for Playboy. And then she went on to work for Hustler and Penthouse and all the other magazines. This was back when you could make a living shooting for magazines. And if you kids don't know what a magazine is, it's the internet made out of trees.
They don't know.
So, And I started working for my parents when I was 20. And I, with the intention of kind of like helping out for a little bit. It was just at the very cusp of the internet. It was, I think, 98. And we had just launched our website. My parents just launched our website, Suze.net. We launched, I can't remember if it was 2 weeks before or after Google launched. So that's how long ago it was. And I came in with just the intention of helping out for a little bit while I changed schools. And I ended up staying. And here I am, 25 years later.
Okay. Well, so this is, it's interesting because earlier in the year, we got a chance to speak to Violet Myers. Who you may, I don't know if you know her personally.
Yeah, I've had her on my podcast.
Oh, well then great. Perfect.
She's awesome.
Yeah, it was a really cool conversation. And this is one of the things that I have found in having this podcast, being that the idea is to kind of pigeonhole people always consistently. And it's always you're a soccer player. Talk about the ball. What do you do when you kick it? And I love it. Obviously, we have our own channel for all that stuff. We actually have a bunch, but I prefer in my, what I would call real life, to delve into stuff that I don't know about, people that have perspectives and views and things that I would never, ever have an idea about. And that was the whole reason we reached out. And it's a really cool podcast, one of our obviously most listened to. And so that being said, I don't understand the adult film industry at all, because I just saw an article that said that all of the you're gonna know the answer to this, but Pornhub and I don't know what other hubs.
I knew this was going to come up.
Okay, good, because this sounds like the most genius plan in the history of the world. So if I can explain this right, and you'll correct me, some company or some guys own all of the big porn websites, all the hubs or whatever that's out there. Plus, they are also making money off of the pirated versions or of the videos. Like, can you explain to me what's going on? Because when I had it explained to me, I was like, what?
Sure.
They own everything.
Sure. Okay, so the company you're talking about is MindGeek. And yes, they have been through several transitions. They've been through a couple of different names, but essentially they own a lot of the big pay sites such as Brazzers, Reality Kings, Twisties, Digital Playground. There's a bunch more, but those are like kind of the big ones off the top of my head. They also own Pornhub. They own RedTube and there's another tube site that they own, but they don't own every single tube site. Like X Videos is owned by a different company. So, so they own the biggest tube sites, and they own some of the biggest pay sites in the world. And yes, it's all owned by one big company. They kind of started off with Fabian Thielman was the CEO, and he came from a tech background, and he came in with this idea to, take porn and make it like this big kind of corporate machine, which is what he did. He got a loan for about $400 million. And I remember when this happened because I had already been working for Twisties for several years before MindGeek came and bought them. And he just went around and bought up all of these pay sites and also launched Pornhub, which was essentially like a YouTube for porn. And it was different because before then you had to go into like a file. It was kind of more complicated to get free content. You had to go, it was like a Napster situation, right? Where you had to go into some kind of server and download it. And you had to sort of know how the interface worked, which, a lot of casual, internet users didn't.
Yeah.
So Pornhub was the first time that you could watch videos in like a platform similar to YouTube where they're just videos on there. And it was a user generated, user-based platform, exactly like YouTube is, exactly like Twitter is, Facebook is, Instagram is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people sign up and then they upload whatever they want. Of course, at the beginning, this was problematic because people would download other people's porn movies and upload them. So there's all this pirated content on this tube site, and it doesn't matter, you could send in a request to get it taken down, but it would pop up again somewhere else. And so that was a real problem at the beginning. And then as MindGeek evolved, I think, Pornhub came to see that what they were doing was really harmful to the adult industry, and a lot of people were really upset. So they really started to make this shift. And they, first of all, made it much easier to get non-compliant content taken down. And then they started kind of like digitally watermarking content so that, if it was taken down, you couldn't re-upload it again. But all of these were kind of like, slowly introduced over time. And so there was a long period of time where there was a lot of pirated content on there. And it was difficult to get it down because it would just pop up again. And then they got to the point where they actually opened up a partnership program so you could get paid per view. So you could upload your own videos and get paid, monetized exactly the same way YouTube does. And if you found your pirated content on there, you could send in a request to Pornhub, and not only would they move that content over to your account, but they would credit you the monetization that it had made under that other person. So these were all like good things, but it didn't prevent ultimately the upload of illegal content. And then finally, when the New York Times article came out and everybody kind of went crazy about the child porn that had been uploaded there and not taken down quickly enough, Pornhub eliminated all unverified users. So anybody who wouldn't provide like an address, an ID, like all of these things to basically verify who you are, all of those users were eliminated. All the videos under those users were eliminated. And now it is only user verified uploads.
Wow.
So it took longer than I think some of us would have liked to reach that point. But that's where they are now. So they're, whatever you've heard, whatever, people are saying in the news now, and there's a lot of stuff in the news now, Pornhub is fully compliant with IDs, verification, legal content now. So when Layla Micklethwaite goes on CNBC and says that you can go to Pornhub right now and see loads of child porn and illegal videos, she is outright lying through her fucking teeth. And I just want to be so clear about that because it's so easy to put out this kind of misinformation because it feeds a narrative that everybody assumes about porn. And so when she goes on, no one's going to challenge her and say, okay, where are these videos? Show them to us. So
what's her motivation for that?
She is a part of a anti-porn religious organization called Exodus Cry, and they've been trying to get basically porn shut down.
What
Wow, so.
Exodus Cry? That sounds so it's a religious. I mean, so they'll have all the we have plenty. So I'm gonna save that whole chunk for just a little because I want to go back to something that came up on another podcast that we were doing because we were going to have her name is escaping me now. She's a doctor. She helps men with, I believe, porn addiction. She's got a pretty big YouTube channel. But one of the things. Oh, do you have something to say about that?
No.
You look like you do.
No, I'm fine. I feel like, okay, here's the thing. Like, porn addiction is not something that's actually recognized by a psychiatrist. It's not recognized as an actual addiction like alcohol, like drugs is, right? But I've interviewed quite a few people about this. I don't feel that I'm qualified enough to speak extensively on this subject in a way that I think does it credit. So I would recommend that you would go either interview or look up articles written by Dr. David Ley, who's a psychiatrist, and Dr. 𝗪𝗟𝗡.
Okay.
And they have both been on my podcast, and they both speak against, this whole, because the problem is that I believe this woman that you're interviewing, if it is who I think it is, she after she goes through this whole thing about porn addiction, she tries to sell you a get out of porn.
I think it's
course. Her. Yeah.
I think this could be the right person. I can't remember her name.
Yes, I'm pretty sure it is. She does have a big YouTube channel. So then after you're you've been convinced that you have a porn addiction, and usually studies have shown that people who believe they have a porn addiction are people who come from really repressed backgrounds, like religious backgrounds, who have a ton of shame around sex and masturbation. And so
I see.
Yeah. Again, I don't want to comment too extensively on it because I don't want to do the studies discredit. But like I said, if you want to talk to either of those people or even just look up their research, they can offer you an alternative opinion on it. And you can listen to both and you can decide.
See,
what you think
that's it. We have this other podcast called Biscuits and Tea, where it's just the basic whole premise of it is that they're three idiots, the three of us trying to solve the world's problems. Basically, we start with an issue and we basically solve it. And obviously, we get to the end and realize how stupid we all are and how uneducated you truly are in the modern world. If you don't actually go deeper than the CNN headline or the lady, like you said, that's like, there's child porn everywhere. It's in your ice cream. It's under your, they'll shout. That's what people do that have extreme beliefs. They shout. They're louder than everybody. And now we live in a time where those people can get a platform. But the reason I mentioned that is because we had an interesting discussion on, and you may or may not know something about this. It was news to me. One of the guys who was a producer on the show, he's 18. He brought it up to our attention that some kids in his circle have virtual girlfriends. They have these virtual things, these bots now that you can, they talk to you. They're kind of like a person that you can discuss with or whatever the thing is. And they're advertised towards, one of the other guys would get ads for this on maybe TikTok or maybe with Snapchat. I'm not sure where, but they would get ads for it all the time. So my question to you is, especially considering that you also do photography and stuff, the augmented reality, virtual reality world, and porn. We for sure are heading down a very interesting route there, right? We're definitely getting to a point where there's going to be, I know they're already working on the robots and all that. That's fine. Okay, I understand that. But with augmented reality and with virtual reality, where are we really going? How close are these people? Because I think the way they explain it to me is you put the virtual reality, you have sex with something that, I don't know, some sort of contraption. It all moves with the thing or something like this. Where are we going based on what you've seen?
Well, I am actually partners with and working on the first erotic metaverse. So
there we go.
So I can tell you that we are definitely headed in that direction. We have not launched yet, but we are getting very close. We're hoping to be able to launch in the fall. And yeah, there will be all kinds of interactive possibilities. There's already interactive sex toys. 𝗪𝗟𝗡, for example, makes an interactive penis sleeve. And you can so you put it over your penis, right?
All right.
And then either somebody else, on the other side of the world can have a dildo, and whatever she does to that dildo, because it's connected wirelessly to this penis sleeve, you will fill in your penis sleeve. It also has the technology to be able to read videos and hand movements. So if you're watching like a hand job video, you can kind of connect it to this penis sleeve, and what you're watching in the video, you will feel in your penis sleeve. So yeah, there's a lot of possibilities for virtual relationships in the future, and whether or not it's going to be a great thing or the downfall of humanity. I think, all new technology is always scary to us. But that's where the world is going. So I'm going with it.
Yeah, there's definitely a period here. I honestly don't know what to think about it. I mean, right? Because like here's an 18-year-old to tell me about this, what's going on. Like, oh, hey, my only concern, I would say, me personally, as a guy who you have to what porn does in a certain way, obviously, it's there as a tool. I have no qualms with porn whatsoever. I have no religious qualms with anything. I don't have anything, assuming that everybody there is consensual and fine and wants to be there. For me, I can't really see it. But I have not given it the true deep thought. I don't have any experience in the adult film industry. I don't really know what trappings of anything could be. What I would say, if I have to push back on the danger, is all the things that are good about, let's say, watching too much porn will take you away from possibly pursuing maybe actual sexual experiences in your life if you overdo it on one hand. And the great thing about learning to speak to women, have confidence in there, is that definitely permeates throughout the rest of your life. That sort of, for men I'm speaking about, at least, that sort of confidence definitely, will help you in other ways. The one worry I would say on the new stuff, like your metaverse, a penis sleeve, all this, it sounds so like you just told the people that we had to look at porn using cutting down trees first. You're about to take us into the metaverse. What 14, 15, 16, 18-year-old who's afraid of talking to girls is like, well, screw this, right? Like, I can set up Violet Myers penis sleeve, run through her whole entire catalog for the next, there's always that danger, I feel like, right? Whether or not that's going to be something that takes over society, it really changes behavior, stuff like that, remains to be seen. But I don't know what you think about that.
Well, I will say, so first of all, we are putting like very strict and carefully thought out measures, first of all, to ensure that nobody underage accesses the content. There will be all the free areas will be safe for work. You will not be able to access anything that is not safe for work without age verification. And we have a special like digital ID that we're actually working on, which is a little bit more than just like putting in a credit card. And that's something that one of my tech guys would be able to explain better. And it's something that we're still working on. But the idea is that the future that hopefully across the span of the entire internet, that everybody will have a personally encrypted and very private digital ID that will identify you as who you are. And that will not only help eliminate, minors being able to access content for people over the age of 18, but bots, people trying to pretend that they're you, all that kind of stuff. So that's some new technology that I think we're moving towards, which I think is going to help solve a lot of our problems.
Okay.
Secondly, like overall, what I see, so of course, there's always issues for like, overconsumption of anything that brings you pleasure, right? We see that in all things. Overall, the consumption of media in general is kind of an issue. I wouldn't even pinpoint it and say specifically it's porn. I would say that, I mean, we talk about how social media people just like scroll through Instagram constantly and they don't go outside, or, people have lower self-esteem because they're living through their phones and they're not interacting face to face with people. So I think that's ultimately like a problem. And I don't necessarily think that the metaverse is going to solve that. I don't, I don't, I mean, there's there's a capability for more of a personal interaction there with the augmented reality and stuff like that, rather than through a phone. You can feel like you're actually in the room with people. But I don't know if that's necessarily going to like help you be a more socially adept person. But yeah, I think, it's hard. It's so hard to predict the future. I mean, we look at media and we look at new technology and we're always fearful of what it will do to us. And I think that there's been definite downsides to new technology and there's been a lot of upsides. Like social media is kind of a good example, right? So social media, especially in the adult industry, on one hand, it's this place where people are very consumed by it and people are subject to bullying and trolls, and it enables anybody to be able to talk to you, right? But it's also been a rallying point where performers can connect with other performers and out problematic people in the industry, support each other, come together and create organizations, support groups. So there's always a yin and a yang to everything, right? So I don't think that, porn in the metaverse is going to make
the fall of
that
the Western society.
yeah. But I mean, I think just as a part of overall media consumption, yeah, it's something that we need to think about. And I have a daughter. Like I definitely think about like, how am I going to manage her and her media consumption? Like, will it all be figured out by the time that she's old enough? I don't know.
Right.
But I like to have faith in human society. I'm hoping that, we'll come back together and we'll start to recognize the importance of interpersonal relationships. I don't know.
Sure. You definitely touch on something when saying there's the danger of over consuming anything that is pleasurable. And that's just a fact. And the problem for society, I say, or the reason this is a hot topic in that is that there's nothing compares to sex for most people in that sense. And so it's such a strong, pleasureful experience for people that they can't control it, right? In the same sense of like maybe some incredibly addictive drug in that sense. But I mean, to be perfectly honest, I mean, we have a massive issue with sugar as a that's not treated as a drug, and we're not too worried about the next new whatever candy bar that comes out that's even better. So although like being said, I mean, we're a bit naive to the dangers that sugar is actually causing us as a society. In the same sense, we are definitely we're catching on, right? Like you said, with overconsumption of media and all this stuff. But I would go on to say, as I have just a few more questions on this, not now leaving apart the augmented reality stuff and kind of coming back to this, the whole thing. I mean, you mentioned you have a daughter. You're female in porn, and there's always a stigma in mainstream society about women involved in the adult film industry. There's always a quick call to say that there's some sort of trauma issue, something like that. Where do you see that in within the entire industry at large? And have you noticed something that would validate the cliche type image that people have of women in porn, or is it complete opposite, or how do you see that?
So, oh man, there's so much to unpack here. So
good.
First of all, when it comes to my daughter, I'm honestly not concerned. I was raised the daughter of pornographers. I think I turned out great. I know that I also work in the adult industry, so some may argue that that is not the case, but that's just people who believe that working in the adult industry is a terrible thing,
right.
Which I don't agree with. But to that point, if they want to believe that, brother and my sister are two very well-balanced, healthy people. Neither of them work in the adult industry. My sister's a nurse. My brother is a lawyer and a software developer. So even if you want to say like, I got sucked into the evil vortex of porn, my brother and sister who were raised in the same family are fine. We're all incredibly close as a family, and we have no issues. So I think what is the most damaging thing about the adult industry is the stigma attached to it. I don't think that porn itself is a bad thing. So also too, you spoke about, the victimization of women in the industry. See, I find that also so interesting that people always point to women. They never talk about men. We never talk about men being victimized in the adult industry. We never talk about men being degraded. And I think it plays to this idea that women are inherently victims, that women cannot be their own, they have no agency, that they don't actually enjoy sex or being an exhibitionist. They have to be pushed into it by a pimp boyfriend or something like that. So, and all of those ideas around women and sex and porn is part of the reason why I started my podcast, because I found that to be so untrue of so many women that I work with. So many women that I work with are career oriented. They are business minded. They love what they do. They're happy to be in an environment and in a world where they don't have to be ashamed of their sexual desires. And they are welcomed and embraced, and they can make money off of it. Now, of course, that is not the case for everyone. There are people who come into the adult industry and it is not the right place for them. They have a lot of shame around sex. They have issues or trauma around sex that is not helped by, making it into a business. So it all just depends on the person. You have to be the right person for this industry. And also, Akira said it once on my show, and she said it perfectly. She's like, the porn industry is the perfect place for like a small selection of people, and probably not a good place for most people. So it's definitely kind of like it takes a unique kind of person to, I think, be in the industry and really thrive from it. But, I don't think that it's fair for us to exclude those people and those stories just because the story of the girl who got into the industry and is terribly ashamed of what she did and had a bad experience fits the narrative that we're so used to being fed. Like, what about the stories of the people who don't have those experiences? What about the stories of the people who were able to come in and like make an incredible living and invest in their future and, take care of their families? And actually, I've spoken to performers who have helped heal their sexual trauma through working in the adult industry because they were able to, practice. They were able to have sex in an environment that they felt was safe and secure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, despite what you see on the screen, you're surrounded by a crew of people. I mean, obviously there's always bad apples. There's always bad directors and people, but those people are being weeded out now, especially with, like I said earlier, the social media platforms, like where, performers feel empowered now, especially with OnlyFans and other ways that they're really making money on their own to say like, hey, this is a bad director. This person made me do things I didn't want to do. I was afraid to speak up because I felt like I would be blacklisted. I'm not afraid anymore. And these people are being really pushed out of the industry. So I think you find that what's left is people who really respect the performers and people who want to create good content and people who really enjoy what they're doing. So I've just seen like a big shift in the industry in terms of the attitudes, the people in it. And I just think it's really going towards a more positive place.
Mm-hmm. I'm also, to touch on what you said about men, is it not because, and I don't know, but we never talk about the victimization of men within porn in the same sense, which is also going to be controversial to say, that how when every year almost, there's a story that comes out about a teacher that sleeps, a female teacher that sleeps with a young boy that's like 16, that's underage. Yeah. And what happens in the comments. They always go look at the teacher. Is she attractive? Oh, this kid, amazing. You're not a victim and all this stuff. Is it not because the whole predominating
Yeah.
in the culture, the idea is that men are chasing women, that sex is something that is that they have to work for. And so therefore these guys that are in there, they're definitely not victims because look at who they're sleeping with or look at what their day job is. Is that not the reason why? And if that's not the case, are there some dudes in there that are like, clearly there's going to be some version of this, but like, what's up with the guys there? What do you get? What type of guy is there in porn? Like, who is this guy?
I mean, like with women, there's all kinds. And yeah, no, it's the idea that like, the way that we take genders and we stick them we pigeonhole them. Like men are always this way, women are always this way. And this is the only way that they ever are. And they're never any different. And I think that's why there's such a huge pushback right now against these rigid gender roles and why you see so many people coming out as non-binary and stuff like that, because we've basically chained people to their gender identities for so many years. And we've decided that you have to be this way because you're a man. You have to be this way because you're a woman. And people are all shades of gray in between. There's definitely men who've been in the industry who have come out now and talked about having a bad experience. Randy Spears is one of them. Joshua Broom, who was Rocco Reed, is one of them. So, that happens to men too, where the hard thing about guys is that they're really, porn puts a lot on your body. Look, you as a soccer player, you know this, right? You have a very physical job, right? And there's injuries involved and there's probably like a limited time span of how long you can do such a rigorous activity. Like porn's kind of the same. It's very physically demanding, and especially with guys. So if you're a really good male performer, because there aren't that many of them, it's a fucking hard job to do. And a lot of guys,
really?
All the DMs that I get on the daily basis being like, I want to be in porn. I'm like, dude, you have no idea. It is so difficult for men to do. It's like, you got to stay hard. You have to be.
Okay.
Oh my God. Because first of all, you're on set, you're in an environment which is usually not that sexy. I know people when people think of like a porn movie, they think like the lights are low, there's like music on, they're on a bed. Like, no, you ever had to do a sex scene like on a rusty truck in the middle of the desert when it's 115 out?
Wow.
And like, we're running out of time because the last scene went late. And so we need you to stay rock hard, do these 5 different positions, one where you're holding her upside down, for 40 minutes straight. And then you got to come on cue because the sun's setting. We need you to come right now. Like literally right now. Why is this taking you so fucking long?
Yeah.
Like it's a lot. Crazy. It's very hard. And, a lot of guys understandably can't do it. Doesn't make you any less of a man if you can't do it. It's a strange job. So if you're a good male performer, you will probably work a lot. So you're going to put a lot of miles on that penis. And after a while, sometimes it becomes harder and harder to,
I see,
be as solid as you once were. And so then guys will sometimes turn to, Viagra is obviously an option. But that can start to
have other
not work so well after a while. And then they turn to Caverjack, which is something that you inject into your penis.
Caverjack? Never heard of this. What is that?
It's something that you inject into your penis to keep it hard. But what it does is I don't remember specifically what it does, but it kind of like degrades. It can degrade the penis in a way. Again, this has been on my podcast. We've talked about it. Go look up a clip where I talked to Lena Paul. It's called "Surprising Facts About Robotic Dicks," I think is the name of the highlight. And she talks about it. And I know some guys who've had to have penis like implants where you basically press a button that's like put in your groin and then it like inflates your penis in order to be able to get hard. So it's hard on a man's body. And here's the other problem, going back to the stigma around the industry, because the stigma around the porn industry is so strong, it's so difficult to get out of this line of work and do anything else because everybody only ever sees you as that person. A great example is, I don't know if you ever listened to John Ronson's The Butterfly Effect.
No.
But he talks about that and he interviews he interviewed a male porn star who actually passed away recently. I've worked with him a few times. Joey something. Why am I spacing on his last name? Anyways, he left the industry and decided to go become a nurse because he was done.
Wow.
And he ended up getting fired from his job because somebody recognized him as having been a porn star. And so they were like, you can't work here anymore. So
That's
stupid.
But okay.
It's so stupid because it's like, and this is the infuriating thing for me. It's, there are all these people out there being like, get a real job. Porn's not a real job. It's bad. It's evil. Get out of it. Like, okay, some people try to get out of it. And then like, you won't let them move on with their life. You won't let them have another job. It's just like,
right.
It's, you treat them like they're criminals or like sexual deviants. Like
right.
They're just normal people. And they can't move on with their life and do anything else. So they get sucked back into the industry because it's the only place that they can work. And it's just really sad.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, that once again, this is 100% the reason why you're here, because I've never heard of that. I've never even considered that though, too, because it does tend to be glorified amongst guys just in general. But then when you think about, just like with anything, whether you're looking at your top favorite athlete, like, oh, it would be amazing to be LeBron James. It's like, okay, do you want to, or Michael Phelps, do you want to get up at 5 and train forever? Do you want to do that? Because you don't look like you want to do that at all, because that's what it takes to get there and to do that. And there's always this other thing. And we are so bad at so many times at really like having a look at someone who's in a position that we like, and then just forgetting like all of the extra things that need to happen in order for you to either achieve that or to be there and stuff like that. And so, yeah, that's incredibly interesting. You mentioned OnlyFans. And so get this, OnlyFans wrote to us maybe a week ago, right? Mentioning that I actually don't even know. It was a fairly long email. They were just saying, hey, we have this platform, like who hasn't heard of OnlyFans by now, and that they do other stuff, not just everything. For me, OnlyFans is pretty much attached to not necessarily the adult film industry, but at least they're linked together, I would say. So I had no idea that they would be reaching out to, say, an athlete to put stuff out on there. But what's your take on OnlyFans just as a general thing? Because then this now definitely allows women or men, I guess, obviously, of course, to be able to monetize, do something just like that, right? It definitely makes it more accessible. So do you feel that that's good, bad, or it's just a bit of both, as always?
I mean, OnlyFans has changed the landscape of the adult industry in a very dramatic way. I think personally in a positive way. Not every producer is going to tell you the same thing because, now that a lot of performers are making so much money on their own through these platforms, sometimes they just don't feel like showing up to set. Or it's hard to book them, or, you know what I mean? But ultimately, I really think it's a positive thing that performers are now able to be financially independent and that they can create their own content and build their own platform and build their own brand. And they're not beholden to like the big corporate bigwigs in porn anymore. I think the recipe for a healthy, career is the ability to be independent in a way that where you can say no to what you don't want to do, because who wants to have to, especially like with sex, I mean, it's something it's an intimate thing for some people, and people have their limits. And I know that people have been talked into doing things that they didn't want to do because they were afraid they weren't going to, be able to make their rent that month. They weren't making enough money. So OnlyFans has really changed that. So that's been really great. I'm not surprised at all that they reached out to you. So OnlyFans has, for a very long time, tried to be all about their mainstream creators, right? We all know the backbone of OnlyFans is sex workers. Like, come
Right.
on.
Yeah.
Like, we know that, but they do have this small selection of athletes, influencers, musicians, etc., who have signed up there, and those are the people that OnlyFans wants to push into the foreground. Because they want to be like, oh no, we're mainstream, especially in the face of the Visa and MasterCard crackdowns on processing payments. When that article in the New York Times came out about Pornhub, that created this whole butterfly effect in the industry. And OnlyFans actually went out last year. I think it was October of last year. They came out with a statement saying that they were basically going to not allow explicit adult content on their platform anymore. So essentially all of these people were like going to have the rug pulled out from under them. And so, of course, there was this big outcry and everybody was like, how could you? Like, we basically built your platform to be who you are. And then they reversed that and they were like, oh, just kidding. Never mind. We love sex workers. Hee hee. Sorry.
Yeah. Wow.
But they've definitely been scared by this crackdown on Pornhub with Visa and MasterCard, because Visa and MasterCard pulled payment processing from Pornhub. So that's a huge problem. I mean, they're the two biggest credit card companies in the world. Like, if you can't process those credit cards on your platform, you're screwed.
Yeah.
So OnlyFans was very afraid of that happening to them because, you know, they had verified users, but it's still like, I think it wasn't as tight as it could have been, like the restrictions and the security. Now they do like face scanning and all this other stuff, which I think has helped. But also too, it's the same problem that you face with any user upload site, is that people can upload whatever they want, right? And sometimes people upload things that are not legal, and it can be hard to catch it. And when you've got millions and millions of users, it's like, how do you catch every single upload? That was the problem that Pornhub was having. So even with verified users, you know, to perform in the adult industry, you have to have IDs and paperwork on everybody. And not every model has, they're not, you know, that's a producer's job. That's a whole other fucking thing. Paperwork is half my goddamn life. Okay. It is fucking not fun. I have to do so much fucking paperwork for my job.
Yeah.
So I am not surprised that OnlyFans reached out to you, because I know that they would very much like to put forward a mainstream front. And, you know, like, even though porn is the backbone of their industry, I think that they also feel it is dangerous and scary, and it's on shaky ground a little bit right now.
That makes sense. I mean, obviously, to have a diverse, you know, if you can have a whole bunch of stuff on your platform that's not just linked to that, I don't see how they're going to get around it necessarily. I mean, unless a big push, unless you're going to get some of the, you know, all the influencers within one genre, all the footballers have to be on OnlyFans as well, to where there's this, and that doesn't seem like a marriage that's going to be happening, because there's going to be a limit, right? You can only pull in the individuals. It's going to be hard trying to get the New York Red Bulls to be the face of OnlyFans right next to whichever, you know, adult film stars is right there. There's a limit to the high end people, because they all have brands that they don't necessarily want to associate with sex at all. They want to be the family business, you know, and so that's going to be an interesting challenge. But you've mentioned the fact that people can upload whatever they want, and so there's this whole, also I saw an article on basically a headline on a guy in Britain, I believe, who uploaded revenge porn of his ex-girlfriend, I guess it would be, and he's being charged they're like coming down on him. To be honest, I mean, if you ask me, like, he should be crushed into oblivion, right? But I'm surprised that the state has actually got that. They've got their shit together with like how they're doing it. I don't remember exactly what, but what's the deal with revenge porn in the industry, just in general? Because like, if someone uploads something, I can't imagine what the process, like how horrible it would be for someone. And obviously it generally happens to women, or that are the ones that are being exploited in that way. Like, what process? Like, you can't just get Pornhub's phone number and, hey, there's some videos up there, and like, what is going on? Like, or is there a whole process that makes it easier? Because I know that the laws are pretty strict, I think, on people doing that without their consent, but I don't know if you know.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, consent's a huge part of what makes the adult industry work and what makes it a safe place to be. There has to be consent, and we push that so much now. We have consent and boundary checklists when I shoot. Like we're really on top of that stuff now. So I wouldn't say that revenge porn is a big. I mean, it's definitely not a part of like the legitimate mainstream porn industry. Like, why would you why would you put up revenge porn when there's like why would somebody who is um like a successful person in the industry, why would they put up revenge porn when they have so many people that they could shoot with who are willing to shoot that porn and they can put that up? So revenge porn, I think, would only be associated with really unverified users, right? Which is the problem that Pornhub had before they eliminated all unverified users. So getting revenge porn up now, I think, would be a lot more difficult. Or if you did it, you would you would really open yourself up to liability because you're a verified user. You've been face scanned. You've provided your ID. You've provided your address. You've provided your phone number. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
And of course, you should be prosecuted for that. So I think that that's a problem that really,
Right.
happened more so when we were dealing with unverified users on these platforms. But everybody's cracked down so much on that I don't think that that's really so much of an issue now. And then you ask about how do you get stuff taken down? There is a process. When you go to Pornhub, I'm sure it's still there, but there's links, emails, forms that you fill out, like link to this video, take this down, reasons why, etc. And now, I mean, they will definitely, even if you're putting in a false claim, they'll take it down to review it and then put it back up if it's a false claim or whatnot. But sure. They're not taking any chances. Yeah. So no.
I remember asking Violet, I think, about this, but I'm curious just from a football standard or a football point of view. Like we train, right? We do a whole bunch of stuff. Do people in the industry have insane training things for like on the male side and on the female side? Is there a way for them? Like, do they look at it as something to be won and to be getting better at and to be perfecting?
So for sure, there are some male performers who definitely are very conscious of their performance and maintaining their ability to perform. Charles Dara is a great example. He was a jiu-jitsu fighter as well. So he, comes from a background of a lot of discipline. And he talked about it on my podcast. He has a vitamin regimen. He has like a special, he makes sure that he gets 8 hours of sleep the night before. I believe he does like breathing exercises in the morning before he goes in, drinks lots of water, like stays in shape. So every guy has a different system. Some guys don't have a system. Some guys, especially if they're younger, they may not need a system because, their penis is always raring to go. But generally, the guys who do well are ones who are very healthy, who either don't drink and use drugs or do it minimally. And just, are kind of athletes in their own way. But I wouldn't say that they,
sure.
like, I mean, I wouldn't say that they like practice reverse cowgirl like for 5 hours a day or something like that to like make sure that they're ready to go. But they definitely, take care of their bodies and, make sure their head's in the right place. And yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's interesting. I just, anybody who considers himself an artist or is trying to beat out other people. I mean, there's competition, right? To some degree. I mean, I don't know who is there a general consensus on who's the greatest porn star of all time?
I mean, you probably get varying opinions on this. But I would say up there probably be Rocco Siffredi.
Sure.
Manuel Ferreira. I mean, in terms of like guys that have just like, been awarded a lot of awards. I mean, Manuel Ferreira is one male performer of the year multiple times. But I would say there's like a good, top 10 guys. You would have like Isaiah Maxwell in there. You would have Mick Blue. I mean, there's
What about
a
on the
lot.
female side? What about on the female side is as well? What's
Yeah,
the?
for sure.
I don't know. I don't know what the. I mean, I don't even know what the criteria is. I mean, it's just a question that came to my head. I don't even know how you would objectively
I would say
say.
probably, in my opinion, I would say probably Angela White's the most famous, most popular girl in porn right now. She's won Female Performer of the Year multiple times. She's really intelligent, business savvy, has her own brand. She's a dynamite performer. I mean, she loves what she does. Like, she's amazing to work with because you really see it when you see her. Some girls are, like they like what they do, but they definitely kind of like turn it on for the camera. Like Angela's she's authentic. Like you just see it and you feel the energy in the room, and she just like devours her partner with her eyes before she even touches them. It's kind of magical, actually. It's pretty cool. And then I would say like Mia Malkova is another one, but she's not really doing much in the way of scenes anymore. She's really more of like a big Twitch streamer, and she's got, a huge social media following. Of course, she has her own OnlyFans, but she's not, I don't even think she's doing boy girl right now. So yeah, I would say probably Angela White. And then there's, a bunch of other people right there along with her. Cherie DeVille, Danny Daniels, Lena Paul, Adriana Chekchek. I mean, there's a bunch of girls I'm not thinking of right now, but there's a lot of them. Violet Myers is, she's new, but she's definitely like up and coming. I mean, she landed a Vixen contract, which is a big deal. So,
yeah. I mean, it's crazy to see the ones that are savvy are clearly the ones. And I mean, the advice that someone gave her, and I can't remember the male porn star that gave her this advice, but it was basically to build your brand. Like, make sure, if you're going to make it here, make sure you kind of take care of yourself in that sense. That's the same advice I would give to a guy going into the soccer world. You can no longer really separate. It's not entirely true, but it is. It's like, if you have a good social media following, if you have a good brand outside of the sport, kind of, let's say your direct talents within the sport, that opens up so much more for a club. Not only does it open up so much more for a team that you might go to, it also opens up more for your ability to be independent of the sport. Because, for instance, I played in Serbia, and while I was there at the club, which is a good club, especially now, and had an excellent financial backing at the time, they ended up not paying us for months. They gave us some bonuses, and those bonuses are considerable, but salaries weren't coming in, not at all. And that was early in my career. And that was one of the first times I realized, like, I'm pretty much a slave to you guys. Like, if you don't pay me, I don't, I'm a footballer. Mm-hmm. This is what I do. I come here. I don't spend any time doing anything outside of this or earning any money outside of this. So if you stop paying me, I'm screwed. And it was a big lesson for me to know that by the time I was 28 or so, I'd started the process of shielding myself completely from that world, which opened up a fantastic amount of opportunities within the sport. Because now you are more than just a guy that can kick the ball, even though you can do it well, right? And I made a career out of it. You become a guy with bringing more, and it's just kind of like something that I just feel is the ethos for someone who's living a good life especially within their own business world, is that not to be multi-talented in the sense that you need to focus on a whole bunch of different things, but that if you can accentuate the talents that you have. And I think that's what social media and all this stuff has done for me. It accentuates the extra talents that I have with languages, with with the ability to explain what I'm doing and stuff like that. And so I find that really interesting that that's now the case. There's a huge thing going NCAA. I don't know if you know anything about that, but you go to college, they make millions of dollars off of you as a student athlete.
And you don't get anything.
You don't get anything.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like anybody who works in any form of entertainment, it's all exploitative, right? And that's why like I kind of get so like infuriated when people are like, oh, the adult industry is exploitative. I'm like, all fucking forms of media are exploitative. Like they all are. But because we're associated with sex, it's like something that, makes people clutch their pearls even tighter. But you have to look out for yourself and you have to create a brand. And that's where, going back to what we were talking about earlier about the positives and negatives of social media. Like, yes, social media has had its negative impact in ways that we discussed, but also like it's enabled people to connect with their fans and create their own brand and really like go out and become their own personal entrepreneurs. Like creators could never, the word creator wasn't a fucking word before. And now like you can go start your own podcast. You can like, you can get paid for your TikToks. Like you can do all of these amazing things that you can do all comes from like these advances in technology and in media. And that's, what we're also excited about implementing in the metaverse, because our metaverse is ultimately going to be a place for creators where they can set up their own destinations and interact with their fans in new, exciting ways. So,
what's the name of it again? So
it's called Joy City, JOI.
Joy City. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything up? Is there a beta, or is there some stuff up now? Or?
No. Well, yes or no. We have a beta, but until it's safe for work, like totally safe for work, we don't want that out there. So,
gotcha.
We got to replace a bunch of stuff to make sure that like, people who go in are not subject to safe for work content. So we're actually working on that right now.
Okay.
But I'll let you know, like, I don't know when this episode is going to release, but I'll let you know like when we're at a stage where people can go in and explore it safely.
Yeah. That would be something really interesting, I think, for us to do on one of our other podcasts. So definitely do let us know, because that would be a cool, just exploring the metaverse as the title,
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's one major project. I mean, we're about closing out here, but are you working on anything else, or is there anything, I mean, obviously you have your podcast and stuff like that, but where to link people to see more and to hear more about you?
You can follow me on Instagram or on Twitter. I'm at Holly Randall. I am fucking shadow banned on both platforms, which is lame. Of course you are. Yeah. So another like bad side of social media, like
yeah.
Sex workers and social media were like this all the time.
I know.
But if you, if you're trying to find somebody on either platform and you're not getting it by searching inside of the platform, if you actually just Google like Holly Randall Twitter or Holly Randall Instagram, that's actually how you can find people. Because like everybody in the adult industry is fucking shadow banned. So in order to find the right, and there's so many fake accounts out there, in order to find the right account, you usually have to go that sideways. Anyways.
Yeah.
You can also check out my podcast at 𝗪𝗪𝗟𝗏.unfiltered.com.
Okay.
It's available on all podcast platforms. And of course, my YouTube channel is youtube.com/𝗪𝗪𝗟𝗏Unfiltered.
Awesome. We'll link to everything, obviously. But this is awesome. I always enjoy these conversations, stuff like this. I mean, you're living a fantastically interesting life. And so, I appreciate it. And we'll definitely have to do it some other time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you come on, definitely the Biscuits. The other guys are just as dumb as I am. If not, one of them's at least dumber than me. One of them for sure. So he asks interesting questions too. So we'll have to do that some other time.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.